Hello, welcome. So today we're going to be looking at r/NuclearRevenge, and they're all just absolute insanity today. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in listening to, then stick around and enjoy. And don't forget to like and subscribe, please. Thank you. So first post should come with some trigger warnings for attempted R-wording. Obviously I can't say the word, but I'm sure you can figure out what that is. So if that's not something you can listen to, then feel free to dip out. That is not a problem. So, try to drug and R-word an innocent girl at a party. No, not while I'm here. First story taken down from Pro-Revenge because of a ban on felonies. Tell me if that's not allowed here also. Long and graphic, so skip if you're not comfortable. TLDR at the bottom. So, to put it simply, I was a little shite as a kid. I used to steal from stores and family, swear and throw things at random people walking down the street, was smoking from the age of 12 and didn't give a shite about anyone but my friends. They were my real family, or so I thought, and the group of all 5 of us would cause trouble every single effing day. My parents, though, in my later years, have told me that they should have been more effective in their discipline, really weren't to blame. I was just a mixed up kid. I used to think that doing all this stuff made me cool. I can't really describe how superior I felt when I made grown adults afraid of me, but it made me feel powerful, and power was something I craved when I was younger. I could go on and on about my sins, but the fact is, I was just effed in the head. I made amends where I can to who I could, but you're not here for self-flagellation, you're here for the revenge. So, long story short, when I was 16, my parents finally had enough. And despite all my tantrums and screaming and even some physical violence against my dad, they decided to put me in a school for troubled youth. I call it a school, but what it really was a military institution that taught discipline in the most brutally effective ways, while throwing in some literacy and numeracy classes along the way. Surely schools like that just mess kids up more in the end? It's like saying, oh, you're naughty and you do things to people that are not kind and you do things to people that hurt them. Let's hurt you instead until you don't do it anymore. What? Without going into too much detail, I'll say that this school changed me. While aggressive, violent, cocky, and near homicidal when I was first dumped on their doorstep, the men who ran this camp broke me down. I was there for just over a year, no phone calls, no visits home, no access to the outside world, for 1 whole year. I had this camp and these counsellors, these real-life hard-ass men, teach me just how much of a shite stain I really was. I mean, it's great that they did good for you, but there's so many people that put in that position of power over annoying young kids who think they're the dog's bollocks that would just completely abuse that power. So I still don't like them. I still don't like places like this, institutions like this. There are more effective ways than beating the crap out of kids to get it out of them. By the end of my second summer, I was a changed kid. I had fought and screamed and gotten my ass kicked more times than I can count, but eventually I was beaten down. These men taught me that real men simply don't act the way I did, and that the type of path I was headed down would lead me either in jail or dead. They were brutally honest about it, especially this one counsellor, Jay. By the end of my stay, I considered Jay a second father. Though I hated him at first for making me feel inferior, he really did me a favour teaching me how toxic my behaviour was, and to this day I still think of him as something of a hero. He was the main person who deemed me ready to return home. But the backstory is getting really long, so let's get to the real story. When I returned home, I changed from an abusive little prick to a somewhat civilized young man. Ready to take on my last year of high school, I was nervous to go back since I had adapted to the disciplinary school lifestyle, but I was also excited. I missed my friends and I hoped they would just accept me back despite the fact that I hadn't spoken to any of them in over a year. And to my relief, I was accepted back with open arms. One of my closest friends had moved states since I'd been away, but the other 3 were ecstatic to see me. Over the next few weeks, I settled down. I didn't spend a lot of time with them outside of school. My parents were kind of testing how much I'd matured since returning and were setting boundaries on when I could go out, how long I could stay out, and where I could go, etc. I was determined to prove them that I wasn't the same F up that had ruined their lives all those years ago, so I followed their rules and so only really talked to my friends during school. All of this is relevant because of what happened next. I had joined the school football team, all three friends were a part of, and one evening after practice, all my teammates were in the gym, sweaty and dirty, but pleased with ourselves. I was chatting and laughing with my three best friends so much I didn't notice that we were the last left in the gym, but that's when the conversation started turning bad. One of my friends, I'll call him F1 for simplicity, started telling me about a college party they were all planning on going to, and how they'd been crashing college parties for a few months now, since it was easy access to girls and booze. I was hesitant about it because I didn't think mum and dad would agree to let me go, but then F1 started talking about this girl he was planning on inviting. A girl who went to the same school as us, but not one I thought F1 had any real relationship with. I knew her, but I didn't know her. He started to tell both my other friends and me that he'd been trying to get her into bed for a while, and she kept making excuses, so he planned on taking her to the party and finally smashing. When I asked him in a joking way, what makes you so sure she won't reject you, he looked me dead in the eye and said as casually as you please the most chilling sentence I have ever heard in my entire life. I'm just going to slip something in her drink. It'll loosen her up. No problem. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That's horrifying. At first, I just kind of awkwardly laughed, thinking it was some effed up joke, but they weren't laughing with me. When I asked him if he was serious, he told me he was sick of her bullcrap games and knew she was just stringing him along, and that the pills would just make things easier. That's absolutely horrifying. What a nasty little turd. I could not believe my effing ears. I excused myself from the conversation pretty quickly and practically bolted home, most likely driving through several stop signs, but I don't really remember. I spent the whole night convincing myself that my friends were just messing around. A few more days pass, and the conversation in the locker room is all but forgotten. Though they hadn't shut up about the party, I kept insisting that I just sneak out and join them. I got called a pussy repeatedly for telling them I wasn't going because of my parents, but again, I just brushed it off. Then the shit finally hits the fan. Oh dear. During yet another after-school training session, we all end up the last in the lockers, and F1 does something I never would have expected in 1,000 effing years. All three of them have been talking about the party this whole time. Then F1 starts rummaging through his gym bag. He tells us all to look at this and tosses F2 a small bag of little pink pills. Oh no, 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 no. Immediately, I feel the blood drain from my face, and like a bomb's going off in my head, a voice in my mind is screaming, holy crap, this is really happening, this is serious, holy effing crap. It's really hard to describe what I was feeling when F1 started going into detail about how he planned on inviting the girl to the party, slipping something into her drink, and making use of one of those frat boys' bedrooms for a few hours. That's disgusting. What a horrible, vile guy. I was sick. Like literally could have hurled everything from my stomach all over the floor as I listened to all three of them talk about how awesome the party was going to be, after just describing how they were planning to R-word a girl. I couldn't take it and I ran off. Yeah, I mean, we've got to remember that OP is a teenager here. Like, that is a whole lot of scary crap to take in and then have to try and process what the hell to do. It's a lot. I actually did end up puking later that night, going over and over in my mind what the F I had just witnessed. I almost couldn't believe it. These three boys had been my friends for 15 years. I thought of them as my own family. I thought I knew them better than anyone. But 1 year away and this? I'll tell you what, I actually broke down crying that night. I'm not ashamed to admit it. What I am ashamed of is how long I took to actually get a grip and handle it. I knew I should have told someone, but in an effed up way, my loyalties were still screwed. Don't crucify me for it. I know now what I should have done, but I was 17 and these were my best friends. I didn't want them to get into trouble, but at the same time, I knew I couldn't let this crap go down. So instead of reporting all I'd heard to an adult, like a normal effing person, I decided I'd sort it out all on my own. So I went to F1 and told him not to do what he had planned. Told him it was stupid and dangerous and would ruin both his life and the life of the girl he was planning on drugging. He didn't even blink. He got right in my face and told me that the school I got sent to had turned me into a pussy, that he hated how much I'd changed and had been trying to change me back with friend 2 and friend 3. He even told me how they'd been talking about me behind my back and how they plan to give me a turn on the girl. Oh, that's foul. Once F1 was done with her, just to show me what I was missing out on. And then he said something I'll never forget. He told me, word for word, I'm doing that little bee a favour. She's an effing virgin, and after this party, your mum won't even be the only one finally getting some. Oh my goodness. Horrible, horrible. It sounds like he needs to go to that school. Like, genuinely, or prison, one of the two. I punched him. We fought and we both got sent home on suspension for fighting. I could not effing believe it. I was seething. My best friend had said that to me. My best friend had told me he was going to R-word an innocent girl at a party and I was a pussy for not wanting to join in. I was disgusted, sickened to my core, and I was done with him. My parents were disappointed I had gotten suspended so shortly after coming home, but I just sat quietly while my mum cried and my dad screamed at me. I know now that I should have told him, but after what F1 said to me, I had this insane notion in my head that I was going to get him back all on my own. And now to the revenge. Yeah, obviously in an ideal world, you would have said something then, it would have been good. But again, we have to remember that OP was literally a kid in this. So after a week of being grounded, I went back to school and the first thing I did was seek out F1. He was about as bashed up as I was, but he was sporting a nice black eye from where I'd hit him in the face. F2 and F3 were standing with him and they all glared at me as I approached him. Then I did something that made me feel sick. I apologized to him. I told him I was sorry that I hit him and that he was right, I had changed. And I hated what that school had done to me. And I wanted to go back to being the old me again. And surprisingly, they all bought it. Yeah, it's because they've got like one brain cell to share. Clearly. F1 and I even hugged it out, and I put the cherry on top when I told him I'd be coming to the party. Now, for my dumbass teenage plan. First, I start recording them whenever we were alone together. I wanted to get everything they said about the party and the girl they were planning on victimizing on tape. I knew I needed some kind of proof, or it would just be my word against theirs. And after a few days, I had gotten more than enough, but I wasn't done. No. My stupid self had a plan and I was going to fulfill it to the fullest. So the next thing I did was track down the girl, take her aside and tell her everything. She was peed off and scared, but I begged her not to go to the police or tell anyone. I know now that that was stupid as well, but for some reason, she listened to me. I had a plan, a crazy stupid plan to teach them all a lesson. So I told her to tell F1 that she was going to meet with him at the party, but to just stay home so she could stay safe. Later that day, F1 started bragging about how the girl had accepted his invitation and everything was going to plan. And I sat there, phone half out my pocket, recording the whole damn thing. So, night of the party finally rolls round and I sneak out because, I was grounded. I think it's worth mentioning that I wasn't filled with vindication and self-righteousness through this whole night. I was second-guessing myself, I had doubts, but in some strange way, I felt betrayed. These 3 boys had been my brothers since before I could throw a punch, and I felt betrayed that they had gone down this road. What effed me in the head even more was the possibility that I might have been just like them if my parents hadn't sent me away. It was a strange moment of realization to come to in the middle of a crowded frat house surrounded by drunk idiots, but you take what life throws at you. Yeah, I can imagine, sitting there, looking at them, thinking they're about to, or think they're about to do the most heinous and disgusting thing. And for so long, you thought that you and these guys were the same, you were cut from the same cloth, you had this massive connection. And I bet it's very confronting to then have to look at that and go, was I like that? Was I like that? Could I have been like that? And yeah, at such a young age, I can imagine that is really quite daunting and shocking, even though OP ended up being a stand-up guy and sorting himself out. it would still leave you a lot of questions and feeling kind of uncertain about yourself, wouldn't it? It really would, because again, I am very much a firm believer that you are the company you keep, to a point, obviously. But yeah, it must be very confusing for them. So, the night goes on, and F1 is getting steadily more frustrated that the girl he invited hadn't showed up. I'd made sure to keep him in my sights for the whole night, not wanting him to decide that any old girl would do if he couldn't take the one he wanted. Yeah, that would be something I would be very much worried about as well, because he just seems determined to be a cretin no matter what. I kept an eye on all of them, watching as they drank and drank while I stayed as level-headed as possible with some water in a beer can. When midnight came, all three of them were plastered, and I knew that all the girls at the party would be safe by then. By this time, the crowd was dying down, and a few people who couldn't hold their liquor were already passed out around the house. Oh, teenage parties. Yeah, I remember a few of those. Goodness me. There was a fair few times that I was the one on the floor. Like, learn from my mistakes. Don't do it. Just don't do it. And now was my time to shine. While all three of them were occupied with a drinking game, I hunted down F1's bag and found the little bag of little pink pills. Here's where I did something I'm not particularly proud of, but I'll tell you anyway. I know where this is going. I just know it. I slipped one pill into 3 beers each and handed them to my friends, and then waited. It didn't take long before all three were passed out on the floor along with a few other party guests. I then took out a black permanent marker from my pen and wrote R-wordist on all three of their heads. I took pictures and immediately uploaded them to our school's Facebook page, so everyone who attended our school would see. Admittedly, I didn't really think this part through, since I not only did this in full view of every other conscious person at the party, but also knew that the photos wouldn't last long on the school site because they would be taken down. Yeah, and also, wouldn't it be like such and such posted, and then it would be like your name saying you'd posted these photos? Definitely didn't think that through, did you, OP? But since it was a small school, in a small town, I didn't doubt that a whole bunch of people would see it before a teacher removed the photo, and that's exactly what I wanted. Yeah, and I bet you they all screen grabbed it as well, didn't they? That's the thing. You can post them on the internet and people are going to quickly screen record it, quickly screenshot it. I mean, look at all these influencers all the time that post something that they probably weren't supposed to. They think that they managed to quickly delete it. But no, before they've even had chance, there's been like 20 people that have already got a screen recording or a screenshot. And now it's there forever. Next came the recordings. When I got home, I got a verbal bludgeoning from my parents for sneaking out, but they stopped when I finally told them what had been happening. They were both shocked and a little bit disbelieving. Yeah, I can understand why they might not believe all of this story, to be fair. But when I played them both the recordings I'd saved on my phone, they were just as sickened as I was. I was silent in the car as my dad drove me to the police station, receiving a lecture about how I should have just come to him in the first place. Yes, you should have. And what I'd done at the party wasn't necessary, and a crime, unfortunately. Like, I hope OP didn't get in trouble for that, because I think that their heart was in the right place. They were just being a little bit dense because, you know, teenager, didn't really think it through. But it is a crime. But I felt like it was at the time. My phone had already blown up with the other students commenting on the pictures of my 3 ex-friends with the R-wordists written on their foreheads, and while a lot just laughed at them, many were questioning if there was any truth to it, and it was what I wanted. I wanted everyone to know who they really were, so they had nowhere to hide. The hours at the police station were admittedly very scary. I was still debating with myself whether or not I did the right thing, but my friends had chosen their own fate. I still felt hurt and betrayed. They'd allowed themselves to become this way, and even though I felt a little guilty for potentially ruining their future, I did what I thought had to be done. And long story short, the recordings were enough to get them all on charges of planning to commit a crime. Since the girl F1 had been planning on drugging had been named, her parents were understandably furious and demanded all three of my ex-friends be arrested. I would have been too, were it not for the girl telling her parents and the courts that I had warned her to stay away from F1 and the party. I was charged for my use of an illegal substance, since I admitted to using the pills on my three ex-friends, and also for battery, since the permanent marker was seen as a form of assault, but luckily I never got jail time. Really? The permanent marker was seen as assault? Come on now. What a stupid thing. I did get a boatload of community service, though. I mean, yeah, to be fair, you did give them the pills, so I can understand that. You do need to be punished for that and shown that that's not what we do. All three of them were tried as adults in a case of attempted R-word, but only F1 got actual jail time, since he was the one who had gotten the pills and was the only one who admitted to wanting to use them. The other two only got probation and community service for being accessories, but were completely shunned in our town. No one ever let them forget. Absolutely, they shouldn't. They don't deserve it. That's disgusting. And it was so premeditated as well. Like, it's disgusting enough if it's just one of those, they saw a chance, they took it. It's even more gross that this is like months in the planning. Like, oh, foul. And then, of course, the premeditated nature takes away any question of, oh, well, you know, it was just some kids getting overexcited or whatever, which is the excuse a lot of them try to use, which is bullcrap, absolute bullshit. But, you know, what can you do? You can't really do much when the law goes, no, we're going to let them get away with it because we think that, you know, they're just too young to know what they did. They saw an opportunity and made a bad decision in the moment. This wasn't in the moment. This was very premeditated, and it shows an extreme, just sadistic nature to plan this out. And it also shows absolute guilt. There is no question of just a mistake in the moment. This was premeditated and sadistic. I was prepared for the backlash, ready to be jumped by them or something, but strangely enough, I think seeing F1 go to jail for what he did knocked some sense into the two of them, and they wised up enough to actually get into college without football scholarships, since they were both kicked off the team. They never came anywhere near me again, which surprised me, but I no longer cared. In my mind, my friends were dead to me long before all of this went down, and by the time I moved away to college, it was all behind me. I'm in my final year of college now, and I still think about those three sometimes. I think about how if my parents hadn't sent me to that special school, I may have ended up just like them. Oddly enough, I do miss them at times, but I know it's the memory of the kids I miss, not the men they turned into. I've thanked my parents continuously for sending me to that place, and even got some approval from Jay when I felt man enough to tell him what happened. I don't know what will happen to F1 when he gets out of jail, but a part of me hopes he learns his lesson and moves on with his life like I have. I am unsure for your friend, to be honest, for F1 especially. I feel like he's going to do something else. He seems to be the type to plan to do something like that. Like, his friends, them being yes men and going along with it is bad enough, but for him to literally like make this plan up in his head in the first place, he's some kind of friggin' sick, isn't he, really? Like, oh, it gives me shivers. Jay called me a few days ago just to check up, and I told him this whole story, which is kind of why I'm now telling the internet. I guess the moral is to stand up to your friends when you know they're doing wrong, but maybe not in the stupid way I did. Always involve others more qualified to deal with the situations you're not sure about. Even if you're headstrong, stubborn as F teenager who thinks you know everything. TLDR, 3 old friends of mine planned to R-word a girl at a party, so I expose them to the whole town and get one friend thrown in jail. Update. Wow, I did not expect to get this much support over all this. Thanks for the kind words, and I'm sorry I haven't answered so many questions, but school has been harsh, so I'll try to answer as many as I can. One, to all of you asking if the girl in the story and I became friends, well, sadly, no. We talked a lot during the court case and after, but we never really developed a friendship. I think we were both too embarrassed over everything, so we just went our separate ways and remained civil in school. Yeah, I mean, trauma bonds aren't always the healthiest, so maybe that's for the maybe that's for the best. Two, for everyone questioning why I sound British, all I can say is wow. I'm used to people picking up on it in person, but not through writing. Some of you guys must be secret geniuses. My father is British, his whole family lives over there, and we visit a lot. And his family is about as British as they come. And a little piece of side information, I was actually born in Britain, 6 weeks premature, but I was raised in America. Three, for everyone asking about Jay, well, he's great. A great man who's gone through a lot in his life too. He lost his son to drugs, which is why I kind of think he made it his job to look out for boys like me, just to make sure no other parents go through what he did. His reaction to what happened was to basically call me an idiot for all the crap I pulled, but he was proud that I didn't forget everything I learned the moment I got home. He also told me that he'd like for me to come and speak at the school next summer, just to tell some of the new boys coming in how bad things can get if you refuse to change the way you live. If I ever strike it rich, I'll be giving that school a massive donation. 4. For everyone asking where this happened, for the sake of everyone's privacy, including mine, I'm going to have to keep that a secret. All I can say is it was a small town with a small population, which probably is why the whole thing wasn't plastered all over the news. But I'm paranoid, so that will just have to remain a mystery. 5. For everyone suggesting I tracked down my friend that moved before I got back home, well, I'm kind of on the fence about that. Call me a coward, but I think I'd prefer to remember him as my childhood friend without all the memories being tainted the way they were with all the others. If I went looking, I might not like what I find, and even though it's possible he changed too after being removed from such a toxic environment, I just don't know. I guess I'd rather live with ambiguity. 6. For those of you wondering what I have done in this situation if I'd never gone to that school, well, for obvious reasons, I can't really answer you. I'd like to think I'd have stood up to them all the same, but my mind was seriously twisted back then, so I'd prefer not to think about that. And 7, for everyone questioning what I'm doing now, I'm studying aerospace engineering. I love planes, and through my course I've gotten to tour the underbelly of both planes and even some aircrafts that have been in space. I don't want to sound like a dork, but seeing all those components fit together and actually knowing how it all works and what everything's called and how to identify everything is seriously epic. I just hope I can pass the course with a good enough grade to make a career out of it. If there are any other questions I've missed, feel free to ask. I don't have a lot of free time, so the responses might be late, but by all means ask. Once again, thank you everyone for your kind words and the surprising lack of people calling me a dumbass. I appreciate it. I mean, I think we can give you graces on the fact that you were a teenager and, you still stood up to them. You did the right thing in the wrong way. Is probably the best way to look at it. You made sure that nothing happened to that girl. You made sure that they paid the price for planning such a just disgraceful, horrible thing. You probably didn't do it in the right way. However, the intentions were there. It's one of those ones of you live and you learn. You were a kid at the end of the day, and for the most part, you were doing what you thought was right. And you did save that girl from absolute traumatizing hell. And then down in the comments, Stupid Misanthrope says, OP, major props to you. F those guys. I'm glad you were able to truly grow as a person because like you said, who knows what would have happened if you didn't go away to that school. You seem like you have your head on straight. It's a crazy world out there. Stay safe, brother. And then the OP replies, thanks, dude. And then Stuck in the Pow says, do you think those guys learned their lesson? Do you ever think that F1, who received a prison sentence, will change? Or do you think he's going to be a predator for the rest of his life? And then a user who's been deleted now said, both are possible, you never know, comes down to the individual. Yeah, I feel like it's highly likely that the friend one, will probably leave prison and reoffend, do something else, do something equally disgusting. But also there is also an equal chance that they'll go to prison, and because they are so young, they'll realise what in the actual friggin' hell was wrong with me. I can't believe I was going to do something so disgusting. Let me lead a better life and let me make sure I never do anything like that again. I think because of the age, there is an equal chance for both. I hope it's the latter. I really do. But also, after watching so much true crime, I am not exactly positive that it would be that way, to be honest, but I do hope so. I'm just glad that the OP was there and heard about this and what have you, and was able to put a stop to it, because that's just so scary, isn't it? And I feel awful for that girl as well. Imagine finding out that that was even planned to be done with you. You would have the worst trust issues. Like, I don't know how you'd actually go on trusting people, because she thought that they were friends, and she thought that they, just wanted to come to a party, to only realize then they planned to literally knock you out and do the most unspeakable, disgusting things to you. Like, oh, no. It gives me the heebie-jeebies. I don't want to think about it. It is very scary. And on that note, we're going to leave it there for today. I was going to try and fit in a couple more, but quite honestly, I have the biggest migraine coming. I can feel it. It's right behind my eye. So I think it's definitely a good time to take some of my medication and try and catch this bad boy before I end up laying in bed face down in the pillow, asking why life hates me so much. So yeah, if you made it all the way to the end of this one, I appreciate you very much. I apologise, it was a very scary and negative one today, but I think there was a very positive outcome to this, and I think that the OP changing their life and turning their life around is a really sort of inspirational and a nice story as well, on a side of everything else. So yeah. If you'd like to give a little like and subscribe, I'd appreciate that very, very much, and it'll help you find your way back here for more just insane videos. Other than that, yeah, I'm gonna go take those meds and lie under the covers and make it nice and dark. That'll be nice, won't it? I hope you have a good rest of your day, whatever it is you are doing. Goodbye.